Amazing. And so when you think about that perspective, what sorts of perspective, like where does that perspective need to land for someone to be confident and say, oh, I'm positive. This is the perspective that I have.
I mean, we're talking to educators, and so, I can really understand and appreciate this just from my own background is like sometimes because we work in an education system, we feel like the system disempowers us. It's like there's so much structure that's been set that you can feel it, and it can really impact the perspective that you take. It's kind of like you're like, I can only look down this one hallway and that's the only perspective that I've got. When really you can look around and say like, well, okay, what else can I see around me? And so it's kind of like navigating around the things that are set that to like for me, when I was a teacher, I felt like I could not let go of like a post. I could I had these things that I felt I needed to or not even needed, that I was attached to, when in reality, it's the way that we see a certain, the way to find opportunities is really, you know, like the positive aspect of it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like being positive that there's another way to look at the same situation is kind of what I'm trying to say.
So,
Yeah,
so not even just having a single perspective, but opening yourself up to those different perspectives. And
totally.
and that's very much like I agree. And I think that for me, I look at it as, we're being optimistic about the future and we're confident in what we can control. Right. And so when you think about the idea of looking down one hallway, it's remembering that the hallways go in different directions and there isn't one single way that we have to go. So thinking about hallways, then, what do you feel is the relationship between positivity and education? Just a clean
Can we
little
just like
segue.
appreciate how great that was? That was a great segue. Okay. What was the question about the relationship between positivity and
And education.
oh, I mean, the older I get, the I remember being a teacher and why I became a teacher, because I like wanted to like teach youth. I wanted to teach the next generation to like love movement. I became a physical education teacher, and it was like all about the skills and the positive experiences that I could create in their world. And the more I've worked in the education sector, the more I've seen multiple schools in multiple countries and students, and worked with so many teachers. I feel like the new link between positivity and education is the teacher's ability to create a learning space for personal growth of the human and their own positive attitudes about themselves, regardless of what the subject matter is, whether it's math, whether it's physical education, whether it's interpersonal skills, whether it's like contribution to the community. Like I think that those two things, kind of the same way that I define like what is positivity, it's like it's this perspective that we can help foster teach in students, so that no matter what circumstance they're in, that they feel like there are different perspectives to take, that they do have the ability to look at things in a different way, and that they do have a certain level of control to approach the challenge, approach the scenario, approach the situation, whether that's learning how to read or write, or whether it's a new sports skill, or just like a interpersonal relationship that they might have at school, just like teaching them that maneuverability. And I think that there's a foundation of being positive, that you, if within yourself, that you can find a solution. So I think they're intertwined.
So I'm curious then, do you think that that's an easier thing to embrace as a newer teacher or a more experienced teacher? Because on one hand, as a newer teacher, you're entering the system, you're full of excitement, you've just completed your training to embrace this new career path. As a more experienced teacher, you've had more time to become pragmatic and realistic and understand those boxes, those structures, those posts that you want to hold on to. Right? So which of those do you think is easier to embrace that positivity?
I don't know that there's an easier one. You explained it so well, explaining like how when you come out of teachers college and you go into the system, you're just like, yay, I'm going to educate kids. And then you don't like realize, well, and it's not always like that. And I have to acknowledge that not all teaching spaces that I've experienced have been confining or constricting or like culturally clashing with my own values. So that I went into a department that was like so in alignment with like who I wanted to be as a teacher, and it was exciting. And possible. But then when I extended out of the department into the school, it was like a significantly different culture, which really affected me. So I don't, can you guys hear the vacuums? Is it okay? No, okay.
It's all good.
And so if it's easier as like, I think that it completely depends on the person. What I have seen and what I do know is that there is a larger population of seasoned educators who have given up the fight of the system and are just in the patterns because they are just doing what they can without necessarily wanting to fight the structure, and they just kind of do their best with what they've got.
Yeah.
But beyond that, and I also know and work with a lot of educators who are seasoned, who are still those like advocates, the ones who are the, the movers and the shakers, the ones who consistently find those new perspectives and new things to do. So I don't actually know that there is one that's easier or the other. I think it depends on the person and their own calling of knowing themselves and whether or not this is something that they desire to inspire in their school. And I think when you have one or two people who have that it's momentum. And that if you have that calling to be positive and to help others see things differently, that, finding a few other people, it doesn't take a lot before the momentum is built. But I think that, that we need leaders who are ready to be those positive people, whether you're new or whether you are seasoned or somewhere in between. I think everyone, if you have that calling, that you're needed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that always jumps out for me is for teachers, regardless of whether they're new teachers or experienced teachers, when they fall into those patterns of, I'm going to teach the same lessons the same way year after year because I know that they work. And the thing that I struggle with there is one of the biggest buzzwords in education right now at all levels is this idea of a growth mindset. We're teaching our students to embrace a growth mindset, and yet as teachers, when teachers aren't prepared to dive in and to support that growth mindset by demonstrating their own growth mindset, it becomes really hard to walk the talk. But on the flip side of that, there's so much, right? And there's so much to do. And especially now, when not only do you have all the exact same work that you had to do before, but all of a sudden you have to clean everything and you have to worry about masks and washing kids' hands and all of these things that are just completely changing the game. So I guess without it taking more time, how can teachers be more positive? What can teachers do to be more positive and to adopt these perspectives without it taking more time out of their day?
I would challenge teachers to consider that to take on a different perspective, that perhaps by approaching the day from a positive perspective or a different perspective or even a playful attitude, that perhaps all the things you're managing will not all be there. Or perhaps they won't feel as heavy, because sometimes you have, to do the dishes and you got to clean the things and you got to, but putting music on while you're doing that makes everything feel easier. So it's not that you're going to do less work, but the way you feel when you're doing it will change. And so whether that's a positive mindset or even infusing play into your life, like whatever you need to do in order to get you into a different state. Positivity, I think, is also a state. It's a state that you're in where you're open, you're, expansive instead of contracted and closed. So whatever you need to do to get into those states, do the same day, but from a different state, your days will feel different. And I think when we feel different, we can show up differently. We have new eyes to see different things. And recognizing that right now, with everything with the pandemic and all the new responsibilities and roles, like some things are going to drop, and you, I think, as a professional educator, get to decide like what is more important, that like 58th worksheet, or like students putting their pens down and having like meaningful connections, or whatever that looks like for you in your context. I know there's people in different, virtual or versus in-person spaces. I think teachers also, in this time when so much is changing, it feels like you have to do everything plus. It's like, what if you just got to do everything, but different stuff inside of it, and different stuff that, to me, if I could work with students, like I say that like that was really creepy, but if I had my own classroom, I feel like it's like I always desired to work on the human side of the student experience. Now it's more permission than ever to work on the human side of the student, because like the expectations for academic everything is kind of like, you know, I there's a few out there that are still pushing it, but like most are just like, make sure the students are good. So like leaning into those passions of mine that you brought me into teaching in the first place, and that I've since discovered even more so in teaching experiences, wanting to tap into those students. So everything, not stuff on top of it, doing different stuff inside of it.
What a great point, though. I mean, you know, we have thought so much about this year in terms of the different challenges that it's brought in education, whether it's at-home learning for a lot of the classes that have been forced into isolation, or teachers that have been forced to teach virtually. You know, all of the challenges that this year has brought. But you bring up a really cool point. Like, this might actually be the best year to pilot some of these perspective shifts around being positive and teaching the whole child, because as you say, there's never been less pressure to actually adhere to curricular outcomes, right? Usually, you know, our teachers are so focused on making sure that we're hitting these accessible outcomes, but this year, like that just isn't the same. There isn't the same rigor around that there normally would be. So what a weird but like exciting opportunity to just go and try some stuff and to fail. And you know, the other thing that you said that it jumped out for me, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to name Be Positive with the logo being B plus, is the idea that you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be positive, right? And it's just such a good reminder that we need to try things, we need to be prepared to get things wrong, because our students are going to get things wrong, right? And so it's just the best way that we can embrace our profession and our work and our calling of making kids better humans, by recognizing that they're going to get it wrong and we're going to get it wrong. And that's, for me, that's a big part of being positive. So before we continue on, anyone who is joining us on live, welcome. Make sure that you're jumping in the comments. Let us know where you teach, what you teach. And even if you're catching this on replay, be sure to jump in with the hashtag replay, so that I know exactly when you get to watch and where you're coming at us from. So the next piece that I want to ask you, and I'm going to go off script, as you know I love to do, and you do this all the time, so you shouldn't be surprised either. You know, a lot of this work has been inspired by me thinking about that feeling that I get when I walk into a new school. So for those of you that don't know me, I get to work with Play Education Calgary, which is a region of Melanie's company. And we go into school and we provide dance and yoga programs in these schools. And when I walk into a school on a Monday morning, instantly I can tell what it feels like, how positive of a community this school is. And it took a lot of digging for me to figure out why I feel this way when I walk into these schools, but it's so tangible. It's like a wave hits you when you walk in the door, and it's this smell that's either really lovely bouquets of flowers or the other thing. And it's just so evident. So I would ask you, like, what is that feeling like for you, and how do you identify what that is when you walk into a new school?
Oh, so true. What you're saying is such a real thing. Like seconds of being in the school, and it's not just us as external providers. I think it's every parent, every teacher, every student also feels that. What it is yeah, it's like a tangible feeling that like is energy, you know, like it's energy, it's woo woo, but like there is an energy in the school. And it's really interesting because I always thought, like, my master's was on like leadership in a school and how a principal's role affects comprehensive school health, and like how mental health is linked to that. And I always thought the principal was like, it's always linked on the principal. It's not actually, I haven't found that. I've found some incredible departments. I've found incredible teachers. I've been able to interact with some incredible leaders within spaces, and then met other people when they bring their classrooms in. Like the classes have a culture, like the classes have an energy. And it just reinforces this notion that I feel like every single educator, as the leader of a group of little people, just gets to, you get to imprint your energy, you get to set the tone and the culture and the space for their experience in the education world. And collectively in a school, you know, when you have this energy, and I don't know if it's conscious or not. Like in the schools where like it's exciting. I don't know that it's conscious culture building, but I know that it's conscious community building. There's always this aspect of like knowing kids' names, saying hi in the hallway. There's just this like thing. So I think that even more so why this group is so important, and I'm so excited for people to be in this space, is that you've been called to be this kind of leader. And I want everyone in here to know that your actions matter so much, despite any school system building that you are in. Your classroom is your space, and you have so much influence on the space that you create for all of the amazing little humans that you get to work with. And then you get to decide what the extension of your your space is. Is it to one other classroom, one other colleague? Is it to the whole staff room? Is it to the whole school? Are you a leader? Or are you just trying your best to do what you can with you in that neighboring classroom, that wing of the school, whatever it is? But know that I've seen it matter in the energy of the kids, and also in the energy of the entire building and school, and how parents are. So yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, I love that. And I can echo that too. And that was a lot of my research in my master's, is trying to put my finger on what it is that those things are. Like, why do I feel that way? And, with the teachers that I worked with, that I talked to, I hear, the same sorts of things. It's how much do teachers collaborate? How involved are the parents in the school? How involved are the teachers in the school, extracurriculars, sporting events, what have you? There's definitely, the perception of the presence of admin is a huge thing. But, you go down the list, and collaboration, communication, and innovation are three of the biggest things that popped up most frequently with the teachers that I worked with. And those things are always within the teacher's control, right? So you talk about the influence that teachers and all of you that are watching have, and it's true, so we get a choice. We get a choice of whether we're going to spend our time and that energy on the things that we can control, how innovative and creative we're being with our lessons, how much we're able to connect and collaborate with our partner teachers, or our subject matter teams, or our whole school. And we get the choice in how we're going to make that influence. And yeah, I think that's such a powerful thing to be able to remind everybody of.
Love it. Jill's here. Hi, Jill.
Oh, amazing. I'm just seeing the comment now. So good. Jill, thank you for coming. It's great to hear from you. So Jill teaches a 5-6 split in Calgary. Love that. So Jill's saying that just the kids drive her to try new things, and it's the energy that she gets from them to be more excited, and it's so worth the energy and the work that it is to put into a new task, which again is everything that you're saying. It's deciding that this is the impact that you're going to have, and then following through to the point where you actually get to see that come through on a student's face is just so incredible. The other thing that was really interesting that came out in a lot of the research is the power of the staff room was really interesting to me. And all of the teachers that I've worked with have said that, one of the number one indicators of how positive a school is the lunchroom. How many teachers come together to eat lunch. Now, obviously that is pre-pandemic, but just there's such power in bringing together a staff and having those positive connections that aren't necessarily directly work related. Moving forward, as we navigate, if you had your magic wands, how would you recreate some of that magic, that staff room magic that would happen when all the teachers are together without necessarily a specific thing they had to achieve?
Oh, it was such different things that I saw in the staff rooms that were magical. Like, I just feel like it was always a space where people wanted to hang out. People were just like, oh, can't wait to be done with my classrooms. I could go see people in the staff room. Like, what do you do to make that happen? There was like and it's like so simple and like whatever tokenistic, but like there's like little raffles and draws, or like there's like a shared baking table. Again, so much pre-COVID. Like, how do we live before? Like, what? But just like there's so there was like one of them was like some sort of game that was going on that was a game that had to do with a flip chart that people had to like do stuff on. It just was like this like element of camaraderie and people desiring to leave their classroom to go check in with everyone because they were recognized, they were seen, they were, you know, like that satisfaction of being part of something, belonging as a teacher. It's not just like students belonging, but them belonging to something that is special, that they can link their own identity to, you know, like some schools were like some schools I've walked into, and it wasn't just Spirit Day, like every teacher was wearing clothes from the school. Like you notice that you're just like, everyone has like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or some sort of like logoed, like there's a pride behind being part of that school. And it's not that everyone has to do that, you know, and this is where like principals like, oh yeah, I should probably print shirts for everyone. Be like, look, everyone, you get a shirt now. And like, it's not about the shirt. It's about the feeling behind the shirt, what makes people want to dress it, have that. So I also participated in a few virtual, and Matt, you know, I told you about this last week, right? A few virtual department meetings. And I've done some trainings virtually, and you can get this sensation virtual or in person. You can tell by the interactions between people that there's a level of like camaraderie, of wit, of joke, of like friendship that can be created. So I think whatever feels like that's whatever unites people, you know, like whatever that would unite people in that way.
For me, it's all the schools that I've gone into and that either have a bachelorette pool or a survivor pool or an amazing race pool. Like that seems to be just as popular as potlucks. It's wild. So just kind of bringing things to an end, I want to ask you if you could, two different versions of this question, then you can pick and choose how you want to play with this. So either what is one wish that you have for all of the teachers as they move and continue to navigate the coming days, weeks, months to the rest of the school year? Or what's one thing that you wish that every teacher watching this goes and does tomorrow when they go to work?
Ooh. Maybe it's the same answer for both, but I wish that every teacher leaned into I wish that every teacher would lean into remembering that it's what you said before. It's about being positive, not being perfect. It's about giving ourselves permission to not be the A-type people that probably drove us into this profession in the beginning. It's about remembering our incredible success and how our A-type personalities felt good for so long. And in this, like, you know, the way that it got shaken over the last little while, that we're still worthy, incredible teachers and humans. And remembering that type A pattern that we were in, where we did everything, where we were there for everyone, it's a pattern that felt comfortable, and that now we're uncomfortable because we cannot keep that up. We can't. There's so much to navigate. And so what a perfect time to come back to what you care most about. What is your why? Why did you become a teacher? And so the permission, or the like leaning into, is like leaning into the reason you became a teacher, the thing, that image you had of yourself, like, you know, talk to 18, 19, 23, whatever age you were before going into teachers college, version of yourself, where you had to write your essay being like, what do you want to be when you're like, should we accept you into teachers college? And you're like, because I want to do this, this, and this. Like, I promise, I feel like most of you have an image of you and an image of a student, and the impact that you desire to make on that student on a human level. Lean into that and exhale the rest. It will all be perfect. So that's what I got.
I love that. And that's the mic drop moment right there. So with that, we're going to put a cap on our inaugural Be Positive interview. So Mel, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this. And for all of you that are watching, Mel isn't just here being an interview subject or candidate or interviewee, whatever the proper word is. She's been such a huge part and you know, cheerleader and supporter and mentor for all of the content that you see and everything that you see coming out of Be Positive. So Mel, thank you so much for everything that you do and all the support that you've provided me and the support that you provide teachers around the world. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Play Inc., Play Education, Dance Play, Yoga Play, go check out playinc.com, look up Melanie on social media, and check out some of the amazing, amazing work that, well, that sounds really self-serving because I said that I worked with Play Education earlier. But check out some of the incredible work that Play and the Play programs are doing all around the world. It's definitely a really good case study in how you can bring a tangible sense of positivity into your schools, into your classrooms. So check it out. If you haven't already, please make sure to comment on this video. I would love to know what sorts of questions, what sorts of interview content you'd love to see going forward. Again, this page is for you. This is a community to bring value to you, to make it easier to think more positively, to think more optimistically about your practice. So anything that you want to see, I want to try to provide that value for you when it comes to positivity in the classroom. So please let me know, send a message, shoot a comment, whatever that is. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and thank you for coming out tonight. And Mel, thank you once again. Anything else before we wrap things up?
No, I think you're absolutely brilliant. And just thank you on behalf of all teachers for creating this space, because I think we as teachers and educators need a space to have the permission to let these possibilities thrive. So thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Bye.